Okay, we're gonna get started now. So hi everyone, and welcome to the 2020 Austin Ivy Plus Virtual Speaker Series, hosted here in Zoom and streaming live on YouTube from Austin, Texas. My name is Stephanie Pace. I'm a realtor here in Austin and the president of the Cal Alumni Club of Austin, an affiliate chapter of the Cal Alumni Association at UC Berkeley, and an active social professional network organization of more than 300 Cal alumni living in Austin, Texas. Shlomi?
Hi, my name is Shlomi Podgaitz. I'm an entrepreneur. I work at Dell as a strategy director in Austin, and I'm a member of the Austin Ivy Plus. This event not only represents UC Berkeley, but also represents the Austin Ivy Plus, which is a collection of over 1,000 Austin-based alumni from all over the Ivy League schools, the Seven Sisters, and several prestigious private and public universities. Tonight, we're highlighting the incredible work of Austin-based superstar Rajavel. Here's a little bit about his mission and background.
America is, or was, the dreamland where talented and industrious people from across the planet journeyed to build a great life. With an immigration system now becoming impossible to traverse, globalization leading to opportunities elsewhere, and quality of life taking priority over money, what is the future of legal immigration to America, and what are the financial and social ramifications, and are they the same? On the other hand, are legal immigrants taking jobs away from talented Americans and diluting American values? Raja will explore this crisis in his talk tonight.
Raja is an immigrant and business tech enthusiast. He holds a master's from Stanford in business and a bachelor in electronics computer science from Anna University. At Dell, as a director of product management, he enables efficient and enjoyable user experiences by understanding business needs and designing and developing tech apps with a team of seasoned product managers and engineers across the globe.
We have one request for our audience. Please mute your audio when our speaker is talking and remain muted until audience Q&A. If audio becomes an issue, we will be forced to remove you from tonight's event.
Now we're ready to hear from Raja. Please take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Shlomi. And folks, thanks for joining. You could have been anywhere doing anything right now, but you are with us here. We appreciate that. So, before we get started, let me give a little bit of my background because it's very, very pertinent to the conversation we're going to be having today. So I grew up in the southern part of India. India is from the triangle. I grew up on the very southern tip, a really, really hot place. And growing up, coming to America was the dream. Just everybody around me had it so much. It just felt like the obvious next thing to do. So I finished my undergraduation there, worked for a couple of years in the information technology industry to gain experience. Then I came to study at Stanford in 2008. So I came to study and did my master's in management science and engineering, and then entered into product management, initially at Sears and Kmart in Chicago. And after 6 years there, and after two polar vortex winters, I was ready to move somewhere hotter. So I came to Austin, for South by Southwest and ACL that year, and it felt like a really good place. And then I actually got an opportunity with Dell and with Shola, so I joined Dell, and I've been here for 6.5 years in Austin and with Dell. So that's kind of my background. I'm an immigrant. So I wanted to share and explore with you as a group what are the good, bad, and the ugly things about immigration to America. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. You should be seeing my PowerPoint at this point. If not, let me know. All right. So the agenda for today, as I mentioned, is the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American immigration system. So before we go into the details, I wanted to start with something that surprised me as I was preparing for this topic and doing some research. What is the most common immigrant job by state in America? For example, California and Washington, probably two of the biggest tech capitals in America. What do you think the most common immigrant job is? Is it technology? Is it entrepreneurship? How about Texas, where we have a significant amount of immigrant population? both from Mexico and across the globe. Or whichever state you were born in, if you're born in America, what do you think the particular occupation is? Agriculture is definitely part of that, yes. So if you look at this, be better if this disappears. So if you look at the graph, so definitely agricultural workers, given the huge amount of agriculture that does happen on the West Coast, agriculture is the major immigrant job in the West Coast. In Texas and many other states, it's housekeepers, ground workers, janitors, people who take care of others in various roles. You also have cooks, truck drivers. So immigrants perform a variety of jobs: teachers, construction workers, healthcare providers. Delaware is the only state I could find where software developers was the primary job of immigrants, which surprised me. So immigrants play various roles in various states to various capacities. So with that, let's get into what is good about the American immigration system and the American immigration situation right now. So the biggest thing is the number of immigrants coming into this is continuously growing, and the contribution they make are growing. So if you look at the graph on the left, you would see that overall 13.7% of the American population right now is made up of immigrants. And you can see the graph, it used to be really high. And before this 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act, most of the immigrants were actually from the northern parts of Europe. And then there was a huge civil rights motion that was going on at that point, which also spurred conversations about what about civil rights for people in the rest of the planet? Should there not be equality for people coming to this country? So that act is the one that was able to open up the door for southern parts of Europe as well as rest of the world to come pursue the American dream here. And then on the left-hand side graph, you will see that what is the percentage distribution of these immigrants? So you'll see that almost 23% of the immigrants today are classified as unauthorized. The remaining fall under three big categories. So I fall in the category of temporary lawful resident. I'm on a H-1B visa. And then from this category, anywhere from 15 to 150 years as of current projections, I will be able to move into a permanent residentship, and another additional 15 to 30 years, I can become a citizen of this country. So that's how it's distributed. I'll talk a little bit more about what this process looks like and why it's challenging. So next, the other good news is there is a good mix of people from all over the world. And while the maximum amount of immigrants are from Mexico, there is also the Asian population is starting to emerge as the #1 immigrant population at the moment, but actually the Hispanic and the Mexican population reducing. In the last couple of years, there was not enough substantial data to present it here, but there was standalone researches that suggested that people are actually going back to Mexico, and the amount of Hispanic population was reducing by a bit in the past couple of years. So while the overall number is increasing, the mix is definitely taking a life and shape of its own. And if you look at how people in America feel about it, a majority of them actually believe that immigrants strengthen the country through hard work and talents. And you can also see that 43% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by first or second generation immigrants. And 28% of mainstream businesses, everyday businesses, are founded by immigrants. This is a personal opinion of mine, but coming to America takes effort. Whatever shape or form that effort is, it takes a certain amount of willpower, a certain amount of desire, an extraordinary amount of hard work and dedication and risk to come to this country. So I feel like when people do come here, they try to take the most of that opportunity, and that leads to benefits for both the country and as well as themselves, which is good for everybody. And then the final point is, how does America compare to the rest of the planet, right? We always have to, especially being an immigrant from another country, and having friends who move to other countries, it helps to look at American situation from a global perspective, because many of the problems, challenges, and the issues we face here actually is faced by other countries and other immigrants and other economic situations also. We are not alone. We are all humans at the end of the day, and we do share both the good and the bad with the others. So from that perspective, if you look at it, America actually has the most amount of absolute number of immigrants in the world by far. So if you look at it, about 48 million of them. And as a percentage of population, America falls somewhere in the middle, 15% as we looked at before, 14.7, somewhere in that vicinity, while you see other countries, especially Middle Eastern countries, have a huge percentage of immigrants. Now that has its own economic and globalization story behind it. For example, Saudi Arabia, UAE, as they wanted to grow and expand their country, they invited a huge amount of immigrants, mostly in the construction and infrastructure building industries, to build them up. And those immigrants also face their own challenges, like the working conditions are horrible. People have died from dehydration and the desert heat in the Middle East. So they have their own challenges to face. But I do want to set things in perspective. America has the most amount of immigrants on the planet compared to any other country, which is a good thing. It means that it's inviting, people are interested. No matter what challenges we face today, this is an inviting country. So okay. So with that, let's go into the bad part of immigration. What are that's the good stuff. Now let's get into the potential challenging and the potential painful parts of the immigration process. So going through the immigration process is going through like 1,000 DMVs one after another. Although in full disclosure, I go to the Pflugerville DMV in Austin, and in the past 6 years, they have nothing but amazing to me. So I do feel it's a little bit unfair to DMVs, but take it with a grain of salt. The immigration system has multiple steps across multiple different divisions in the American government, which doesn't work seamlessly with each other. So let me give you an example, right? This graph compares H-1B versus L-1 visa and what the process looks like. So I draw your attention to the left-hand side of it, which is the H-1B process. So personally, for example, I came on a student visa to study in America. And after college, once I procured my job, I moved into the H-1B category, which is skilled labor, people with exceptional talent and labor that is needed in American companies. So for context, right now, 500,000 people working in America are in that H-1B category. And then once you get into the H-1B category, first you have to prove that that person is extremely skilled. You have to prove that that person, no American is actually available for the job that you're trying to fill with that H-1B person, and then only you can hire them. Once you hire them, so I would like to become an American permanent resident and citizen at some point. So then I go through the process of becoming a permanent resident of America. So I started it 10 years ago, and right now it was supposed to be a total of maybe 16 years. But under the current administration, things have slowed down by an order of magnitude. And I do mean an order of magnitude. So rather than looking at 16 years, now I'm looking at 160 years, which doesn't sound practical, but that's how much things have slowed down. So these are the multiple steps involved in the process where even though you already went through some of this as an immigrant job seeker, once again, you have to check the wages. You have to make sure no American is willing or is available rather and qualified to take that particular job. And there are multiple departments involved in the American government. This goes back and forth too. And then finally, this says 10 years, but I already explained what my personal timelines and what the timeline looks like under the current administration. I also want to share a personal experience here. So I think it was 2014, yeah, 15, when between two departments of the American government, between the Labor Department and the Immigration Department, they had to send their paperwork from one part of the department to another. So they lost my paperwork in the American postal system. And because of that, I had to leave the country for 6 months without knowing if I will come back or not. So leaving my personal life here, my house, friends. Fortunately, I didn't have a pet at that point. So leaving things here with no certainty of coming back, I had to leave the country, go to India, and then start the process all over again. Because the answer was, oops, we lost your paperwork, so go back to the back of the line and start it all over again. And that is the level of support, and that is the level of consideration that is given to immigrants at times. Not always, but definitely a lot more than it should be, or a lot more than one would expect. So that's one part of what's bad about the American immigration system. Let's also talk about another part of it, which is quality of life versus money. So I've compared kind of a situation in America, and if I personally move back to India, the situation I'll face there. So let's say, for example, from an income perspective, it's relative. If I make $1,000 a month in America, if I move to India right now and adjusting for like the expenses there, the cost of living, so on and so forth, I would make about $600. So definitely the opportunity for financial remuneration is much higher in America. And the second point to consider is the opportunities, right? In America, it's whether you want to start your own business and be a capitalist, or you want to work for the latest and greatest in terms of innovation, say Tesla or SpaceX, for example, some of those type of extremely innovative companies, the opportunities, if I can rate America as a 10, I would rate India as an 8 right now. Like all the global companies like Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, other than the really niche companies, are actually now available in India for hiring. And also Singapore is the Silicon Valley of the world, of the Eastern world at least, which is another door. So opportunities are actually starting to catch up and level between America and India and Asia in general. And the third point is amenities, right? This is another thing, especially my parents, when they come to America, they're like, this place is nice, roads are good, noise pollution is low, air pollution is low. You don't have the quality of life, and the amenities that make that quality of life are higher. And countries like India are still catching up, but it is definitely lower, like from be it noise pollution or being stuck in traffic, or the ease with which people use anger and violence to resolve things is actually a little bit higher. And the funny thing is, it goes down to supply demand. Everybody drives nicely when there's no traffic, but if it's 7 a.m. in the morning and people are going to meetings, people in America also start driving a little bit rash. So it's all about supply and demand. So those are the positive things about being in America as compared to India, right? But look at the bottom portion, which is a little bit more soft, which is a little bit more qualitative. The racial tensions in America, and the systematic oppression that happens. And when we look at the ugly part, I'll share a little bit more about how some Americans perceive some immigrants. So as opposed to India, where the family and friends I grew up with are there, and having that identity and the sense of belonging. So given all this, so the question truly becomes, is it still worth pursuing the dream in America? And is it still worth continuing in America under the current political economic situation? And this is a tough question. I know this has been discussed, and especially people with aging parents, they decide to go back to India to take better care of them. They have good opportunities there. So this is an ongoing balance that people continuously evaluate. And it's also a very personal analysis to be done. But this is another where money matters less in a sense once you cross a certain amount of point. For even in America, research says that if you're an individual and if you reach $70,000, beyond that, your quality of life doesn't rise with the amount of money you make, right? You need that basic amount of money to fulfill your Maslow's theory of hierarchy needs. And after that, other stuff will add value to your life as opposed to money. So this is an ongoing challenge for many. So, and next, let's switch to what is the ugly part of the American immigrant experience. Sometimes you will be treated as a lesser human. So let me share you some examples of both myself and people I know. So one of the big challenges is, so people like me on H-1B or various different visas that live in this country or even permanent residents, you would have to extend this. So my visa is valid for 3 years. Every 3 years, I would have to go and apply for it again and extend it for another 3 years. So that is a potential point where the immigration officer in the consulate in India, I would have to leave the country, can reject my application. And so I won't be able to come back potentially. So that's one checkpoint. Once in 3 years at least, you would be subjected to the system, which is not always transparent, which doesn't always give you clear paths to understand or reapply or escalate to the next level of analysis. So that's a level of uncertainty that we have to live with as immigrants about our life and our future. And sometimes it doesn't even seem fair or transparent. And the other point is that's once in a few years, right? And the other point is every time we leave and enter the country, the immigration officer in the airport has the right to reject entry into the country and cancel your visa as an immigrant every single time. So I usually travel at least twice a year outside the country and I come back. And that is always a point of stress for me and many other immigrants who live in this country, right? You don't know what's going to happen. And so this is, do we need more punks like you? Is one time this immigration officer asked me in the airport, and he was just accepting my documentation. So he had no idea who I was, what my background is, or why I'm coming to America. He made this statement purely upon how I looked. And again, you're traveling for anywhere from 25 to 30 hours to reach that point. So you're not at your best, you're tired, you're jet lagged, you might take a couple of seconds to answer. So it's not the ideal situation in any shape or form. And I am thankful because once they open up my paperwork and see my background and whom I work for, and I'm able to talk and convince them, I have not had any issues so far, but I've definitely been borderline harassed to judged before they get more details and see that it would be the best course of action is to let me enter the country. So you do get treated like a lesser human, and you do have this continuous stress of uncertainty about your future in America once you leave this country and come back, or if you can come back. And I know many people who have actually not left the country under the current administration because they don't know if they will be able to come back. And I know people, my uncle's friend, his father passed away due to coronavirus. So he went to India for the rights, and now he's not able to come back because all such immigrants have been put on hold till this virus situation evolves indefinitely. So he has his family here. His wife is actually, she has a health condition. So their neighbors and extended friends are helping with their kids. It's very sad. It's an exceptionally challenging condition. The second anecdote I will share with you is from a bartender in Palusa, Washington State. So we entered a bar at about 4 or 5 in the evening. Palusa is, so this is north of Seattle. I went to visit my friend who worked at Microsoft at that point, and we went north for sightseeing, picture taking. It's a beautiful place. Palusa is where the original Windows 95 green rolling hills, that picture, which is iconic with Windows 95, that's where it's shot. It's a beautiful place, but there are definitely some not so beautiful people there. So yeah, we entered the bar, and there were 4 or 5 people drinking and playing cards. And he looked up from the bar and looked at us and said, "You aren't terrorist, are you?" He had a smirk on his face, but it's definitely the underlying tone was not welcoming. So I wish like I had a good response at hand, or I was able to sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation with them and was able to change his mind. But my friends and I were just shocked, and we just left without saying anything. After all, we were armed with SLR cameras and there were shotguns on the wall. So that would not have been a balanced conversation. The third anecdote I would share with you is this. So I don't date niggers and not sure what you are. So this girl sent this message to me on Bumble a couple of years ago, and it didn't make sense at any level. Why do you want to reach somebody and share this with them? What is the point you're going for? And I do. So when 9/11 happened, the Sikh community in New York and other places, if you don't know Sikhs, they're a religion. Sikh is a religion in India and in some other parts in Asia. They come from an extremely proud, honorable warrior clan. So when the India-Pakistan separation happened, and when Muslims and Hindus were killing each other, and women were being raped, and children were being murdered, the Sikh community formed a protective group that protected people from both sides. And many of them died protecting people from both sides. They said, we're not taking sides. We're just going to protect the life of the innocents and the decency of the living. So that community, when 9/11 happened, and when the Sikhs have a beard and they have a turban, so they look like Muslims, some Muslims at least. So when they were targeted and they were killed, when people thought they were Muslims, the Sikh community decided, we are not going to tell them we're not Muslims. Because the Sikhs basically said, if we say that we are not Muslims, don't kill us, that means that it's okay to kill Muslims. So whenever people mistake me for a Black person or think that I'm gay or any kind of oppressed group, when people project that on somebody, saying that, using that as a tactic to make you feel inferior, I think the best thing to do is, given that those things are not inferior, either to not respond to that or accept that you are perfectly fine being what they claim you are. So these are the, and this can go on and on, right? It's definitely being part of the immigrant life in America is sometimes being treated as less than who you are and not having a voice and not having the ability to, so a couple of other points to add here. One is the concept of taxation without representation, right? We all pay taxes as much as the next person, but we don't have a channel to reach and make changes that would make our lives better and that would make our continuation in America better. So that's definitely a part of it. And under the current administration, every time when we come back into the country, you actually have to share your social media accounts, your Facebook account, your Twitter account, your LinkedIn account even, as part of the immigration process now. It was not that way a few years back. So, and they have the right to go through that. And it's a gray area when it comes to protesting. It's a gray area when it comes to participating in the political process. And it's a gray area when it comes to donating to political campaigns or even civil campaigns, because the law says as an external body, you should not influence or interfere in the matter of the political systems or in the matter of the social system at times. So it's a gray area that definitely has been taken advantage of, and people have been rejected entry back into the country because they supported a certain political party or they contributed funds to a certain political system or social organization. So that's the ugly part of this experience. So what can you do? What can we do? So I want to caveat this by saying that there is a lot going on in the country right now. So first, take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. I think I'll borrow from Hassan Minhaj, who said, like close a few tabs in your mental browser, right? There's the Black Lives Matters going on. There's the pandemic going on. There's the political situation that's going on. There's so many things going on that if we just think about everything, we might actually freeze and crash, and then we won't be able to help anybody else. So first, take care of yourself, your own mental state, your own emotional state, so you can help others. So the first thing I request of the people here is understand. And understanding is not a one-time thing. It's not a passive thing. It's an active, ongoing thing. So when I say understand, if you're an American, try to understand where the immigrants are coming from. Who are they? What is their story? Why are they here? When did they get here? Where do they want to go with their life? And at least have one immigrant friend. I feel like, if possible, it truly brings flavor to your life, no pun intended, and explore and provides you access to various opinions from all over the planet. And then the second of what you can do is stay informed. I've listed a couple of Twitter accounts here and the organizations. So Justice in Motion works, especially with the immigrants coming from the southern border and low-income immigrants, right? And then the second organization that I've listed is the National Association of Graduate Professionals and Students. So I'm part of that, people who came here to study and people who work in various jobs in a technical and a management side of things, so on and so forth, graduate students and professionals. And so continuing although in comparison, our struggles and sufferings are in comparison or smaller compared to that of others, but taking a step back and looking at absolute suffering is suffering, big or small. So we need to kind of balance both and help the people most in need while understanding and helping others who are also in need, who are also hurting, but to a different level in different ways. So stay informed so that you at least are able to make that part of your decision-making processes, which come to action. So do unto to others. A few years back, I read the story and I saw this video where a Muslim woman was getting harassed by a couple of guys in the New York subway, and a white lady stood up to them and said, "Leave her alone. You have no right." So, and that truly, like, there are moments like that where you, as an American especially, have privileges and power that I request you to make use when you see somebody getting treated the way you wouldn't want to get treated. And it might be going out of your way. It might be inconvenient to you at times. But if we are not here, if we don't take care of each other, and if we don't stand up when they come for somebody else, who will stand up for us when they come for us, right? So definitely act and protect people and stand up for others when you see injustice happening. And the final point is regarding hiring and firing. I know a lot of people here are in various industries and have the ability and the power to recruit people and let go of people, so on and so forth. So as I laid out, the hiring process and the overall having an immigrant worker will come with some additional paperwork, some additional expenses, overheads, so on and so forth. But do consider that, given the various topics we have touched upon and how overall it makes America stronger. And then the second is the firing process too. So for example, if I lose my job, the letter of the law actually says I have to leave the country immediately. And so, which is a gray area, right? Because if I lose my job today, by legal, like the strictest, harshest implementation of the law, I should leave the country within 24 to 48 hours. I don't know how, but usually the gray area is about 2 weeks. So people try to find a job. If not, like, just handle the things you won't even think about, your house or your rental agreement, lease agreement, your car, your pets, your wife, your children, the children's education. So it just completely gets thrown for a spin. So when letting go of people, when hiring people, or when discussing your company's policy about hiring and letting go of immigrants, please do take these things into consideration when those type of decisions are made. So that is the more kind of the planned part of the presentation. Hope it was useful. Hope you got some insights, and hope you got some what can you do, so it's not just a conversation, but there are some tangible things you can do. With that, I hand over to Shlomi.
Yes, so thank you very much, Raja. As a fellow immigrant, I relate a lot to what you just said and a lot of the struggles. So we wanted to ask you just a couple questions. There's a couple questions from the audience. One of them is, with so many non-citizens that can vote, 48 million, maybe 2/3 of that population is probably of voting age. That's a quite significant percentage of US residents that are not represented, right, in the federal, state, and local government, but which actually shape the laws. What are your views on this, and do you think that there is something to be concerned about these, and to what degree?
Sure. Would you mind if I just turn on the light since the sun went down? I'll just be right back.
Yep.
So as I said before, right, taxation without representation, and to your point, the various departments in the government where we don't get a say in. So first of all, please, what I think I would like to break that down into two components. What can the immigrants do, and what can the government and others do? So I think from an immigrant perspective, for example, simple things like filling out the census, that matters, right? Making sure that you're being counted, as the census data is taken into consideration when funds are being allocated, be it for amenities or education and stuff like that. So other than that, forming associations and lobbying groups and working closely with the existing channels available. For example, the Biden campaign has talked about H-1B a couple of days ago, and how more rights can be given to the immigrant population here. And during the previous administration, they actually made it easier for the spouses and the children of the immigrants to get part-time jobs or contribute to the community. So I would split it into immigrants making sure that they're putting up their hand and they're being heard, and using the existing channels like advocacy groups and lobbying to reach the political parties and the organizations and people in power to move the ball forward. And also on the flip side of that, the governments and the organizations and people in power acknowledging and understanding the position of immigrants and making their lives better too. After all, we came to America for a better life. So I would say the responsibility is split across all these three ways.
We have a few questions for you that were submitted to us by email last week as well. If members of our live audience want to interject in between these questions, please feel free to do so. Also, it's 45 minutes in, so just to let you know, we're going to stay for Q&A, but the event is officially over. But we are going to stay for Q&A. The one question that we had that was a bit more sensitive is, how do you think legal immigrants feel about illegal immigrants?
So how do legal immigrants feel about illegal immigrants? So it's a complicated topic, and the shocking or the uncomfortable part of it is certain legal immigrants actually don't like illegal immigrants. So the legal immigrants' viewpoint is, hey, I have gone through this extensive multi-year process, and I have put in so much effort, money, so on and so forth, and I'm waiting in the line. They almost think like, I've been waiting in this line and somebody's cutting the line directly to the front. How the heck is this fair? Which is a very, so I would share that, especially living in Austin, I went to the protest against jailing of kids when kids were still being held in cages. and the immigrant population that's coming in from the southern side of Texas, they literally, they're asylum seekers. They're running away from a life that could potentially kill them. So I think it's not fair to compare legal immigration and asylum seeking challenged immigration. They're not apples to oranges. So that understanding is sharing more and more. So there's definitely one view in the legal immigration community who are like, hey, we have been standing in this line for multiple years. How is this fair? Maybe we'll get some jobs, that we'll get more jobs if illegal immigrants don't come here. But there is also a growing recognition, especially people who are exposed to the details and the horrors of asylum seeking immigrants, that they deserve a chance. So it's a multi-dimensional situation, like many things. So yeah, there's no direct answer there.
We also have a question from David Chang in the chat box. I have a friend who's undocumented from Mexico, wonderful human being, but closest relative who's a citizen is his stepdaughter-in-law, not a Nobel winner or Olympian. Is he stymied on getting a green card?
Once, so undocumented and wonderful, okay. The closest relative who's a citizen is his stepdaughter-in-law. Stepdaughter-in-law, okay. Are you talking about okay, so I don't have the best answer for that, because the immigration, when it happens by relatives, first of all, stepdaughter, you have to be a blood relative. That's a critical component when it comes to chain migration and migrating through a friend or family member. So blood relatives and closest relative matter. So it's usually parents and brothers and sisters are the only people who get priority over that. And when you talk about, again, not Nobel winner or Olympian, the green card process is divided into 3 lanes: EB1, EB2, and EB3. So EB1 is if you're a Nobel winner or Olympian or a CEO of a company, America welcomes you and it'll give you a green card in about a year. Or if you're willing to invest $1 million in America, generating a minimum of 10 jobs over 2 years, you get a green card. That's called the rich person green card, where rich people, especially from Middle East, India or China, pay for it. And it usually gets used by state governments for infrastructure projects and stuff like that, or certain popular real estate family from New York. That money is used for capitalism, and they get green cards. So EB2, EB3, the other categories, which are what regular people have access to, it's extremely crowded. And especially from countries like Mexico, and all immigration in America works upon which country of birth you are from. So especially countries like Mexico, India, and USA, which form the top 3 countries in terms of the number of immigrants coming to this country, is extremely crowded. So the chance it's going to be extremely difficult is the short answer, for the reasons I just mentioned. And definitely get a very good lawyer with experience. That goes a long way.
So let's get to the question that everyone here is thinking about. We do have a question from another audience, from an audience member before this talk happened. How do you feel the 2020 election will affect immigration in the US?
It's going to have a significant impact. So everybody has said this election is once in a lifetime. It's going to change the direction of this country. That applies to immigration also, especially given the state of coronavirus in America right now, which is one of the worst situations in the planet. People are reluctant as to forget building a better life. Will I stay alive in America if I come here? And as I said, the current administration has slowed down all the immigration processes by almost an order of magnitude. So they have made it extremely difficult. They've gummed up the system. And in August, they were actually going to furlough 50% of the immigration employees, government employees, because they just said it's not a priority. We need the money for other places. So if this election and if this administration continues, I do believe the interest in immigrating to America will reduce, and the people who are interested, it will make it so difficult for them that they may not be able to make it here or continue here, or they will start pursuing other countries that are looking at this situation and making the most of it, be it Canada, certain European countries, Middle Eastern countries, Japan, Singapore. So yeah, it's going to have a significant impact.
Thank you so much, Raja. We appreciate you being a speaker with our series. Your talk was excellent. I hope we all learned quite a bit. And this concludes tonight's event. Next Thursday, we'll have Polly Shrewsbury as our speaker. She'll be talking about big data, friend or foe, or both. We hope you have a great evening, and we look forward to seeing you next week.